So I said, okay. And I went back and continued my research of the Bible. I said, I'm not going to let this discourage me or ruin me. So all these things came into huge conflict with me. This set off a whirlwind of conflict with me. So I was in a frenzy. And I started telling my friend, and he realized that I was in a Christian crisis, as to say. You know, I was in real crisis. So he took me to back to the scholars at Bob Jones, and he also got me in touch with some Bible scholars at the Moody Institute in Chicago, which is one of the biggest evangelical schools in this country, the Moody Institute, which is where I plan to perhaps do my graduate studies after Bob Jones. And they came together and they had, you know, an intervention, as to say, you know, they tried putting, they began to think, because I started to believe that this book cannot be from God. Not only did I notice changes in the text, but changes in the way the language was spoken. Because you can tell in Hebrew when God is speaking, because it is an extremely eloquent speech, a speech that is not like any type of human speech. You can tell the difference. And then you can see when it automatically changes to almost like slang. It changes to like uneducated speech. I ended up talking to one guy at Bob Jones University, and I don't want to give out his name because he will probably not be very happy with me saying that he is the person who wrecked my faith in Christianity. And he would not be very pleased if I were to give out his name and accredit that to him, because he's probably still a professor at Bob Jones. But he sat me down and he said, you know what, Brother Joshua? You're seeing all these things that are happening, you know, mistakes, things that don't make sense, you know, things that don't look right. And he said, you're going to see it, and you're going to continue to see it if you continue to read this book. He said, because this book was written by man's hands. And anything that has been touched by man's hands will have fingerprints still left on it. He said, so what happened was, when all these things you see wrong, is that somebody probably just made a mistake. He said the copy of the copy of the copy, the scribe who copied this person, this, so on and so forth, probably one of them made a mistake, and somebody copied his mistake and made his own mistake, and then that person compounded the other person's mistake, and maybe somebody came back and corrected one person's mistake and then added his own. He said, so that's probably what happened, and you have the final product of all of that. And that just, I had to sit down and actually take that for a second, because I was fighting inside myself to try to keep this book at the status that it has always been in my home, the inerrant Word of God. This is how I was taught. Inerrant Word of God without error. I left Christianity altogether. I decided that I knew God existed. For that was for sure. I could look around me and tell God existed. That was a no-brainer. I knew God existed. I knew He had a purpose for my life. I knew that there were prophets. I knew all of these people were not remembered so well in history and they did nothing. So I knew there was something behind all of this. I just wanted to find it. So I started studying every religion I could find. I knew that God's true religion would be balanced, for sure. Because life is balanced. In order for life to exist in harmony, it must be balanced. And in every one of them, I would see glimpses of the truth. I would see glimpses. And I don't want to discredit Islam. I don't want to discredit Islam because I went to the public library and pulled out a book on Islam. And this book said that Muslims worship a moon god, and they bow their heads 5 times a day to a box in the desert, and they can have as many women as they want, and you know that they're all Arab, and you know things of this nature. And what else did it say? Oh yeah, that they can kill non-Muslims anytime, any place, in any way they wish without scrutiny, and that they would get 70 virgins in heaven and all this other stuff. So needless to say, I made it about 4 chapters in the book. I put the book back. Thank you very much. I took a one of the big fat magic markers and erased Islam off and said, you know, I'm moving on. You know, and I said to myself that if I convert to any other religion, Islam would not be the one, for sure. Thank you very much. I'm done with that one. And so, being 17 years old and having been searching for the truth for about 1.5 years, 2 good years. About 1.5 years. I'll give it good credit, about 1.5 years. Really hard searching. I became very frustrated. I became very angry at a sense that, you know, I'm looking for you, and you're not doing any effort here. You know, and that was my prayer. You know, I'm looking for you, and I'm not seeing any reverse effort on this end. You know, I felt as though I was in a room with all the lights off, and every doorway, there was about 50,000 doors in the room, and I knew one of them took me out of here, but the lights were off, and the only way I was going to know was be able to read the signs on the door. You know, and I was trying to feel my way through this foolishness to find the right door, and I really got frustrated. You know, and I'm asking God, why don't you just turn on the light for me, please? You know, just let me out of this foolishness. And I'm a perfectionist at heart. Anything I do, I want to be the best at it. If I was a Christian, I wanted to be the best. If I wanted to be a Bible scholar, I was determined to be the best. So when I decided to get into the street life, for sure no one was going to outdo me. So I went from one way to extremely the other way really quick. I was getting into trouble, getting kicked out of school. I got expelled. You know, I had to go to night school. I was getting arrested. You know, all these things were happening to me at the age of 17. You know, and my grandmother she was bewildered at all of this. She had no idea what had happened to me.